Hi folks, HR Funk here with a new handgun that has a cool name. This is a Commander, and we've had a lot of variations on that name over the years. We've had the lightweight Commander, we've had the combat Commander, but this is the Tank Commander. And it's a cool name for a cool handgun that's somewhat a different take on the classic rendering of the World War II era 1911 style handgun. And this comes from Tizash in Turkey, and it's in keeping with some of the other handguns we've seen from their line, in specifically the 1911 type handguns. And in this video, I'm going to take a close-up look at the Tank Commander, and this is going to be part one of a two-part video because the weather's not cooperating today. So in part one, what I'm going to do is take a close-up look at the Tank Commander. I'll tell you about its features and functions, and then on a better day, I'll record part two and we'll take a look at how it functions on the range. So since this is obviously part one, let's start the close-up look at the Tank Commander. And we'll start this close-up look at the Tank Commander with the way it comes home with you from the store. And just as I've showed in a couple of previous videos featuring the Tizash pistols, it comes in this sturdy hard case, as you see here. This is lockable. You see positions on either side for a lock, and also it latches closed. And while this is perfectly adequate for transportation to and from the range, and I would say for not real secure storage, I would not use this for anything where you're going to be gone for a long time and expecting complete security for your handgun, because it obviously can be defeated if someone pries on it and tries really hard to get in. Opening the box, and I will reposition the camera slightly. We can see the items that come with the Tank Commander, and real quick, inside the case we can see this is foam lined to keep the handgun from being marred during transportation. There is the tag that accompanies all the Tizash 1911s, and I'll try to get that in focus here, indicating this handgun does have a forged frame and slide. It is a Series 70 style pistol, so no internal firing pin block. It uses standard 1911 magazines, and it was hardened before machining rather. Going back to the case, we can see that you get the Tank Commander itself. It comes with two magazines. Thank you very much, Tizash. These are 7-shot magazines, and they are finished very much like the handgun itself. This looks very traditional, and it reminds me a lot of the magazines we were issued when I was in the Marine Corps back in the 1980s, which were essentially the same type of magazines that were issued all the way back to World War II. The Tank Commander comes with the obligatory trigger lock, which you can see right here, and there are also instructions that I moved out of the way a moment ago that explain how that lock functions. There is a replacement set of grips. These are a plastic set of grips that are reminiscent of the GI style 1911 handgun grips, but they're somewhat different. I replaced these on my US Army pistol with a set of actual surplus 1911 A1 grips that I think look much better. There is a tool for removing the barrel bushing and removing the slide stop during disassembly of the handgun. Looking at the back of the case, we can see it comes with a cleaning brush and a slotted cleaning rod, as well as the owner's manual you can see back in behind the foam there. So all of these items accompany your Tank Commander when you purchase it. And here is our first up-close look at the Tank Commander outside of its case. And the first thing I'll tell you about the Tank Commander is it is a historical fiction. And what I mean by that is the fact that although it is styled very much like the GI style 1911s of World War II, there was never a 1911 that was configured like this during that era. So in that regard, it's kind of like some of the Old West firearms that we've seen that are modern renderings of Old West styles, even though that particular design of firearm didn't exist in the Old West. And I think that's actually kind of cool, because this is sort of a fantasy handgun or something that could have been, and even though it wasn't, doesn't make it any less cool. In fact, I think that makes it kind of distinctive. And as I flip the Tank Commander around to give you a view of the port side, I'll tell you that The Tank Commander incorporates design elements of both the World War II era 1911 handguns as well as 1911 designs that came in the years following World War II. And if you look closely at both this side and the previous image of the other side, you might be able to spot some of those for yourself. Now, in case anyone couldn't tell from the title of this video, this Tizosh Tank Commander is chambered for the 45 ACP cartridge. There were earlier versions of the Tank Commander offered by Tizosh that were chambered for the 9mm cartridge, but this one is in the proper cartridge for this type of handgun. Now, as I said before, the Tank Commander has a forged frame and slide that we see here, and it's finished in a manganese phosphate that I think looks very good. It definitely resembles the GI handguns. It has that dark gray coloration, and I think it looks very good. It looks very businesslike, and it really does harken back to those historical handguns. Starting our top-down look at the Tizosh Tank Commander, we can see the first feature which distinguishes it from the GI 1911s, that being the sights. The rear sight on this handgun is serrated to cut down on glare, which obviously is different from the standard GI pistol. It also has a slightly wider notch to give you a little bit better sight picture, and it is drift adjustable for windage, so that is in keeping with the standard GI design. The front sight, while pinned to the slide, the same as the GI pistols, also has a serrated face, if I can get it to focus, to again help cut down on glare. And we can also see this is a different shape than the standard GI pistol. So Tizosh calls this their enhanced GI sights, and there is the sight picture you can get. And anyone who has ever used a GI pistol knows that is a better sight picture than you would typically get with the standard handguns. Getting a closer look at the side, we can see the markings there, 1911A1 Tank Commander. This handgun has rear cocking serrations only. There are no markings on the right-hand side of the slide, but we can see the Tizosh legend right there. And I believe the Made in Turkey part has been moved to the bottom, right there. Now, this is a commander size handgun, so it has the 4¼ inch barrel that you see here, as opposed to the standard 5-inch barrel that we would have on the GI 1911A1. And I should have mentioned before that that 4¼ inch barrel is cold hammer forged for long barrel life, and if it's anything like the other Tizosh handguns that I've fired, it should be very accurate. And it also has the commander style ring hammer that we see here that once again didn't come around until some years after World War II. Now, those of you who are conversant in the standard features of the 1911A1 have probably already noticed some of the things that I'm about to point out, beginning with the 1911A1's arched mainspring housing. And I've mentioned many times I do prefer this to the flat mainspring housings that are so popular these days. This has a grooved surface that you see here. This handgun also has the 1911A1 style grip safety that we see. There is no extended tang here or anything else. This is pure 1911A1. We have these scalloped portions on either side of the frame in keeping with the 1911A1 design. And the ejection port, while lowered, is not flared. So again, we've got a blending of old and new features here, and I really like the way they've brought this all together with the Tank Commander. Another feature consistent with the 1911A1 is the short trigger that you see here, and it does have a checkered face. It's kind of hard to see. I'm trying to get that in front of the camera and get it in focus, but that gives you a little bit of texture for your finger. And the Tank Commander has the GI style thumb safety, GI style magazine release that you can see there with a checkered face, and the GI style slide stop. And the slide stop does have a grooved surface that you see here. Again, in keeping with the traditional flavor of this pistol, there is no texturing to the front strap. There is no undercut at the back of the trigger guard. This is all pure 1911A1 that we're seeing on the frame. Something else some of you might have noticed as a departure from the 1911 A1 handguns that were issued to the military are these Turkish walnut double diamond grips. And I mentioned that on my U.S. Army pistol, I replaced the plastic grips that came from Tizash. In fact, I'll pull them out here because they're identical to the ones that came with this handgun. And these grip panels, while resembling the issued grip panels, are somewhat different, and I didn't like them on my U.S. Army pistol. I wanted that exact look of the issued handgun that I had when I was in the Marine Corps. But with this handgun, since, as I said earlier, it's a historical fiction, I don't feel obligated to adhere to historical authenticity, and I like the looks of these grip panels better on this handgun. So if I end up keeping this handgun, I'm going to keep the wooden grips on there because I just think they look better. The checkering on these grip panels also feels better and seems to grasp my hands better than those plastic grips that I showed you before. So I've disassembled the Tank Commander to give you a look at some of the internal features, and I will start with the frame. And if I can get my camera to focus, I will show you the quality of machining on this pistol. And it's my understanding that Tizash is not using any MIM parts in these handguns. And I thought about doing a detailed disassembly of this handgun just to check that, but I decided against it. If I end up purchasing this handgun, I might do that in the future. The machining all looks very good. There's a look at the feed ramp, which looks good as well. You can also see that these come pretty well lubricated from Tizash. There's a lot of oil on those rails. Moving to this cold hammer forged barrel, here is a look at it. We see that the barrel ramp is not polished, so it should be adequate for FMJ type ammunition. We'll have to see what happens with hollow points. A look down the bore. As I said earlier, this is a Series 70 pistol, so you see there is no plunger for a firing pin block there. See if I can get a look inside the slide for you. Maybe try to make that a little bit brighter. There is our internal extractor and a view of the locking lugs. Also, this is a traditional GI style recoil system. You see the short recoil spring guide there. Actually, the commander size recoil spring guide. So no full-length guide rod or any of that nonsense. And there is our commander size barrel bushing. And with the Tank Commander reassembled, I can tell you its dimensions. It has an overall length of 7 3/4 inches. As I said before, the barrel length is 4 1/4 inches. The height is 5.5 inches, and the width at the widest point is 1.25 inches. The weight is rated at 34 ounces, and I'm going to check that momentarily with my scale. Now, I'm not certain if the weight rating that I quoted you a moment ago included the magazine or not. The weight without the magazine included on this specific handgun is 33.8 ounces, so just slightly less than the 34-ounce rating. So that would tend to indicate to me that the weight did not include the magazine. When we add the magazine, it is 36.4 ounces. And when the Tank Commander is fully loaded, with 7 rounds in the magazine and 1 round in the chamber, the weight comes in at 42.3 ounces. So this is an all-steel handgun, and the weight reflects that. However, that should go some way in keeping down the recoil impulse when we get to the range and start to actually shoot this pistol. And I wanted to give you a close-up look at these 7-round magazines. These are not marked with a manufacturer of any kind. Typically, Tizosh uses Mekgar magazines, and I believe I mentioned earlier, these magazines are finished to match the pistols, which I think is pretty cool. These look just like the magazines I used to use back when I was in the Marine Corps. And I noticed when I was loading the magazine for the weight check that this spring is pretty stiff. So we will see what the functioning looks like when we get out to the range. I'm not expecting any problems, at least not with full metal jacket ammunition, but we shall see. Turning our attention to the trigger pull on the Tank Commander isn't bad as GI 1911s go. There is a little bit of creep, and I don't know if you're going to be able to see it or not, maybe a 32nd of an inch right there. And I noticed when my Raider was brand new, there was a small amount of creep in the trigger with that as well. There is very little over travel, but there is just a bit. And I expect, just like with my Raider, after a few hundred rounds, that small amount of creep will probably go away. The over travel probably will not, but it's also not excessive and not really distracting. For those of you who are concerned with reset, the reset is very good, as with most 1911 triggers. Show you that again. Right there. Now, I'll grab my Lyman trigger pull scale and see if we can get a weight to find out exactly where the trigger is breaking. And here we go. I will try to get a 3-pull average for the Tank Commander. And the first pull is right at 5 pounds. 5 pounds, 0.8 ounces. You reset the hammer. We'll try that again. And again, pretty much right at 5 pounds, 4 pounds, 15.5 ounces. And we'll try one more. £4 pounds, 15.7 ounces. So the trigger on the Tank Commander is breaking pretty much right at 5 pounds, and the average is exactly 5 pounds. So not bad at all for an untuned factory GI style 1911 trigger. As per the Tizosh website about 20 minutes ago, the MSRP for the 45 ACP Tank Commander is $429.99. And if you know anything about the prices of 1911s, you know that's a heck of a price. And that's the MSRP. Typically, the retail price for these handguns is going to be even less. Also, the Tank Commander is covered by a 1-year warranty from Tizosh and also a service plan that's good for the lifetime of the handgun. And that's going to do it for the up-close shop review, and so comes to an end Part 1 of this 2-part evaluation on the Tizosh Tank Commander. As I said earlier, in Part 2, we'll head off to the range and see how it performs. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions or comments, as always, make sure you forward those to me. Remember, if you purchase anything from Optics Planet, be sure to use my discount code, which is... And if you use that discount code, it's good for 5% off your purchase from Optics Planet. Also remember the new discount code from Hot Munitions, and thanks to Hot Munitions for providing the Tizosh Tank Commander for this evaluation. If you go to Hot Munitions, you can use my discount code there, which is HRFUNK10, and that'll save you 10% off your purchase from Hot Munitions. Last but not least is the Target sponsor for the channel. Go to Target's online, check out their inventory, and see if they have anything that's going to meet your Target needs. See you next time, folks, and until then, good shooting. Bye-bye.